So how about that for a football weekend? Welcome to another edition of Inside Coverage on Yahoo, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that weekend. From the home office in Southern California, my name is Andrew Siciliano. This is the how, the why, any and everything you need to know about the National Football League as we are now down to the Final Four. Alas, there will not be an NFC Championship game here in Southern California. I say alas, because it would be easy to go to and drive to. It's right up the road. Instead, the Rams will visit the Seahawks in Seattle. That's the NFC bracket. I think for our money, the two best teams in the NFL. And then in the AFC, it's Mike Vrabel's New England Patriots and a second-year quarterback heading to Denver to face Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos. That's the bracket in the AFC. And then the two winners after Championship Sunday go to Santa Clara. Just like we thought it would turn out when the season started, guys. Two teams from the NFC West, Jarrett Stidham, Drake May as a potential MVP. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, by the way, Sean McDermott's also fired as head coach of the Bills. Other than that, Charles Robinson, Frank Schwab, there's nothing going on, gentlemen.
I got a question for you guys. I had an exec that I was talking to today, and he just railed on these four teams. Like, he's like, this is the weakest Final Four we've seen in the NFL in years. And I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Even
he
with
just
the
went
Rams
off
and the
about it.
Seahawks.
Even with the Rams and the Seahawks, he just thought it was the weakest last four that he's seen in quite a while. And when I went back and looked, I mean, I can see the merit to the argument. I don't know if I agree that it's necessarily a bad Final Four, but certainly an interesting foursome of quarterbacks. That's for sure. Not what I mean.
I love the NFC bracket, and yeah, Frank, you love the Broncos, right? So at least 3 out of 4.
I did. I thought the Broncos were underrated until about an hour after the game. Yeah, but I think that look, this is not a final. The one thing I like about this Final Four is nobody snuck in the back door. You have 3 14-win teams, and the Rams being the outlier. The Rams might be the best team of them all. We don't know. I think yes, some shine gets taken off Conference Championship weekend because of the Broncos quarterback situation, but even then, we'll get to that. I don't think the Broncos are drawing dead or anything with Jarrett Stidham. No. So I get the point that this Final Four doesn't have a lot of pizzazz as far as Mahomes is not there or whatever, but you got the guys who are going to finish 1-2 in the MVP voting. I just disagree. I think there's a pretty good Final Four. I really do.
I think it's good. It's not like we have 4 George Masons in the Final Four here. Correct. You have 2 juggernauts in the NFC. And we've said, at least I said it, I think you guys agreed at the time, that when the Seahawks came down here mid-season to face the Rams for the first time, I said this will be the first of 3 meetings. These 2 teams are destined to meet in the NFC Championship game. The only question remains is where will that game be played? And in round 1, the Rams won. In round 2, I think the Rams could have been the better team, but they had some things not go their way at the end of the game, notably officiating. But the Seahawks, to their credit, played a good game. Seahawks took it. They had their special teams, and they won the game. And because of that, and because of their Week 18 victory as well in Santa Clara, this game is going to be in Seattle. I think that the other argument, or the better argument, Charles, not that it was yours, but it was that other guy on the phone, or gal on the phone, is the NFC Championship game the real Super Bowl? Are these the 2 best teams standing? And is the game in Santa Clara Super Bowl 60, 2 weeks from yesterday, is that just, for the other trophy, but the most important trophy?
I mean, it's definitely a good question. I mean, I don't know, man. I will say this, you look at the defenses. The Broncos, for all we're railing on Josh Allen and the turnovers, I mean, that Broncos defense can play a magnificent game, right? Especially, yes. I mean, it's a great defense, but in a one-off, I mean, it can really play a magnificent game. And I think the Patriots defense has really raised its level. I feel like they have gotten far nastier down the stretch here. So without a doubt, when I look at the Final Four, and I think this executive was definitely staring at it through the quarterbacks because of the fact Jarrett Stidham was a backup a week ago. You look at
Stafford or 1-2 at MVP. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I think it's like, okay, May May is in his second year. We have not seen the best of Drake May, right? So we're getting Drake May in the quarterfinals, but it's not going to be the best Drake May we've seen in Drake May's career, presumably. Sam Bradford.
That kind of makes
Sam
Bradford.
I'm always
Sam Bradford.
Keep calling him Sam Bradford. The rest of
Bradford. Wow.
Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold.
I have right off camera. You can't see it. A Sam Bradford nesting doll. You know, like those Russian nesting dolls. I don't think it's an official NFL licensed product, but I bought it off the street in Prague many years ago. I can't reach it from here.
For the many versions of Sam Bradford. Don't ever get a Josh Johnson nesting doll, because it'll be the most massive nesting doll you've ever had with all the different uniforms. But I think the complaint was, hey, come on, man. Sam Darnold wasn't a starter in 2023, and now all of a sudden, he's in the quarterfinals, could be playing in the Super Bowl. Jarrett Stidham wasn't a starter a week ago. Drake May wasn't in the league 3 years. Like, it's just this, Stafford really is your minted quarterback that's in this Final Four. I would disagree with it, because I look at the defenses of these last four teams, and they've been so much fun to watch down the stretch. So not the marquee quarterbacks maybe that we've gotten used to, particularly like, every AFC final has felt like we've seen two Titans going at it to get into the Super Bowl. But it's an interesting complaint.
I think the point here about the defenses is very valid. I like the fact that there's more than one way to win in the NFL. I hate when people say, well, you need an elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl, because that's been proven time and again. You don't. Like, it helps. It certainly makes the road easier, but you don't need that. And I like the fact that there's different flavors this year, that it's not, the Seahawks team has been fantastic all year. Like, and I did this too. We talk about there's no great team. Well, the Seahawks are 15-3, and they've lost 3 games by 9 combined points. They're just great in a different way, because Mike McDonald is a freaking wizard. So, again, I like this Final Four. It's different. I don't. The whole Stidham thing just kind of changes the math on everything. But what can the NFL do about that? Like, it was one of the weirdest injury announcements I've ever been part of.
Well, now that these other teams are out, quarterbacks or players that were on the practice squads of teams eliminated could hypothetically sign. So Mike White, for example, could go sign in Denver.
Come on. Stidham's
I know. Mike White's not playing.
Payton's pumping up Stidham, man. I'll tell you that. Like, it was clear after the game. So real quick, I want to tell us, because I was there at the game, and I did the Bills locker room, because Josh Allen obviously is a story there. And I'm back in the press box, and they pipe in the Broncos podium, and that's fine. And all of a sudden, Peyton's up there, and I'm like,
had to be
Peyton
weird.
Hasn't talked yet. This is like an hour and a half after the game. What's going on? And Peyton's got, like, it says, I got some injury news, and I was like, we're announcing something about, like, Pat Bryant right now? Like, what? Why would he come back for this? And then he just drops the bomb, and everybody's just like, oh my God, did he just say that? Is this real life? Is this happening? Like, but the one thing that I did take from that, it wasn't necessarily the Dick Vermeil, we will rally around Kurt Warner and we will play good football moment, but it might be, because he was like, watch out, Stiddy's ready. I'm telling you guys, I'm telling you, he's ready. And he's selling this. I get that. He's selling that to his own team too. But I think he kind of believes it. And Charles, you know Sean Payton better than a lot of people. Sean Payton, let's say ego, right? Don't you think at some point, like, Sean Payton didn't ask for this, but
I think
Sean
like
Payton
to win
being
with
like,
Stidham.
you know what? I'm going to go win a Super Bowl with Jarrett Stidham, and you could just start my 5 years to camp right after that. I think he's relishing this a little bit in the challenge.
Yeah. I'll see your Jeff Hostetler. I'll see your Frank Reich in a conference championship game. All right. I got Jarrett Stidham. He's the guy I took from the Raiders. First move I made when I got here. I'll do it with Jarrett Stidham. He has to do that, by the way. He has to, because he has to tell his team that this is how we're going to win. You can't be dog face here.
I think he kind of buys it a little bit. I don't know. Maybe he's just a really, really good salesman, which he is. But I really get the sense that he's like, you know what? He's not Bo, but we can win with this guy. And because the Broncos have not been a quarterback-centric team anyway.
No, and I mean, that's the thing, is he knows he still has a Super Bowl caliber defense no matter what, right? And with a Super Bowl caliber defense, running the football, find your Otis Anderson, right? Find your, figure it out with your Jeff Hostetler. I love that
Dobbins
reference,
might be
by
back
the way.
This week. Jeff.
I was like, man, the dude had it queued up. Like, I'm like, damn, 1990? We going back that far? The backup quarterback.
I'm old. I'm old.
I enjoyed the reference. I'm sure there were a lot of younger NFL fans who were like, who the hell is Jeff Hostetler? What the heck?
Man. It's not like Ken O'Brien's hurt and Pat Ryan's coming in, but, they're not going to win that game anyway. That's a Jets reference. The other side of that equation, let's get to the big news this morning. I woke up to a bunch of texts here on the West Coast, 6:30 Pacific time. When your phone's vibrating on your nightstand and you're like, what? What? And then you look at it, you're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I could see that happening. And that is Sean McDermott is out. When we got to midseason and things maybe weren't looking up for the Bills, I'm like, yeah, this is finally the year they kick them to the curb. But then they hit their stride and they won games. And then Mahomes was out and Burrow was out and Lamar was out and Aaron Rodgers was out. And I kept saying, but I've watched games the last 2 weekends, not every game, not all of the games, but I've stopped by bars and saw friends, things I can't do when I'm on the road during the regular season. And everywhere I go, I had people say, this is Josh Allen's best shot. And I say, yes, but it's not his best team. It's the best path to the Super Bowl, but this is nowhere near their best team. They don't have a wide receiver. One, you could argue they don't have a wide receiver. Two, the defense is banged up and injured, and he is banged up and injured, and they have to win everything on the road to get to Santa Clara. This, in some people's eyes, is the best path because the other superstar quarterbacks are gone, but this is in no way a cakewalk, and it's not their best team. So they lose to Denver. I don't know if Brandon Cooks caught the ball or not. At first I said no, and then I said yes, and now I say no because I saw that other angle. It doesn't matter. People say, well, if Brandon Cooks had caught that ball, they kicked the field goal, and Sean McDermott keeps his job. Yes, absolutely. But I think this is going to happen if they lost next week as well. And it's hard to put this into words. Yeah. I'll say it out loud. Sean McDermott was 98-50 as Buffalo Bills head coach. 98-50. But he couldn't get over the hump at the end. And I also wonder aloud, although I don't think it factors, Charles, I'll go with you. Does Sean McDermott calling a reporter on the flight home and complaining even more about the officiating lead to this dismissal? And I'll ask aloud as well what every Bills fan in my life is asking. Why the coach and not the GM?
Yeah. I don't think the call on the flight, I think I'll put it to you this way. I had somebody text me when McDermott was at the podium and he said, I'm going to fight for Buffalo. And this guy was like, he's toast. Yeah. He knows he's toast. Like right now he's drowning, trying to save himself right now. So he's doing the speech thing, but he knows he's toast. I agree with you, Andrew. I think it probably would have happened even if he had won this week and then lost in the AFC title game. And, so I talked to a number of people across the league today. I was trying to find a different angle to kind of put this into context. And there was certainly a feeling of what starts to alarm people. Now, granted, Josh Allen's banged up. The team is banged up. It's not the best team around him, but it's this idea of like regression. That last game, it was not Josh Allen's best playoff game. I mean, it was a poor performance for him. And so it starts to be, this guy's turning 30 this offseason. It feels like he's sort of reached the ceiling right now inside this franchise, and almost like McDermott has reached that ceiling with him, and he's had opportunities to break through, and they have not done it. And yes, the roster's not great, but he's had great rosters. He's had teams that were primed to win a Super Bowl. And I'm going to read you this quote. This is actually kind of interesting. I ended up writing about this a little bit. I had an executive brought up, he said, hey, are you familiar with Jessica Pegula, which is with Terry and Kim Pegula's daughter, who's the number 6 ranked tennis player in the world, right? So Jessica Pegula, in the beginning of 2024, she gets off to a rough start in her career, but she's got this coach that she's had the previous 5 years, tremendous success, went to a number of Grand Slam quarterfinals, right, with this coach. She fires him. after she had a poor showing in the Australian Open, she shocks the world tennis community by firing this head coach. And this is what she ended up saying. I looked this up, researched, spent some time on it. And you remember, Bill's ownership, Kim and Terry Pegula, very involved in her tennis career. There's a lot of interesting, thoughts that happen inside a family when you look at athletics and everybody's involved in athletics. So she described it like this. She said the reason she fired the coach, she said, I just felt like I was at the point where I needed a little bit of change. I felt like I needed to hear some different things from different people. I felt like I just needed to kind of change up. I felt like I've done really well, obviously, with David Witt, that was her previous coach, and we'd achieved so many things together. But at the same time, I was kind of looking for how do I get myself over the next little hump? I think that's really hard to do when you're already doing well and you're a top player. It's like finding that balance of how do you become a better player without driving yourself crazy or being too much of a perfectionist or changing something in your game that doesn't need to be changed. That can be hard, and I wanted to kind of push that a little bit. And this executive said to me, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of parallel thought that's going on with the owners of the Bills and their daughter, who, by the way, made the finals of the U.S. Open, her first final ever, after making that coaching change. I think it was 9 months later, made this final. He swears up and down. He's like, I think when you're a family like that and you see your daughter go out and do something kind of bold, kind of brash that nobody expects, because she's like, I need to push myself in a different way. He's like, I'm telling you, I think that resonates with Bill's ownership.
It's really, really interesting. Real quick, I want to touch on the Brandon Beane thing because they promoted him to president of football operations. And maybe that's cosmetic, whatever. But the Bills sent a message that we think that Brandon Beane has put together a Super Bowl roster, but Sean McDermott screwed it up and he's at fault here. I don't agree. I watched that team on Saturday and said, oh my God, Mecole Hardman? What? He's still there? And Brandon Beane throwing a hissy fit when reporters asked him, why didn't you get a receiver at the trade deadline? Said, God, this isn't fantasy football. You just get yes, I get that. But I also, you really didn't put together your best roster here. And they got surpassed by the Patriots this year. The whole thing about this is Josh Allen's shot. This is his best shot. They didn't even win the division. They had to go on the road. We have to step back from just talking about quarterbacks. It is not easy to go on the road 3 straight times and beat a 14-3 Denver Broncos team and even beat the Jaguars in the first round. This was not an easy path for Josh Allen in any way, shape, or form, no matter what quarterbacks were in that field. And part of it is his team wasn't good enough. That roster is not good enough. So the Bills making the statement that, Brandon Beane's doing a bang-up job here, so much we're going to promote him. I have no, it doesn't surprise me at all that Bills fans are like, what's going on here? I was shocked by that.
But Frank, do you think the statement may also be, okay, maybe this wasn't the best team, but he put together Super Bowl teams and it didn't happen. So
that's fair
this
too.
is why we're throwing in behind
this was
we
not
think historically.
The team. They're out there throwing to Brandon Cooks and Mecole Hardman, and Keon Coleman dropped a touchdown early. He caught one later as well. But Keon Coleman, now they gave up a 1 for Stephon Diggs. So when everyone says they've never spent a top pick on a wide receiver other than Keon Coleman, they gave one up for Stephon Diggs. That was early in Josh's window. He was drafted 7th overall in 2018. And remember, Brandon Beane will always have that card to play with the owner. I made the bold move. I traded up, and I got you Josh Allen at 7 overall. Browns passed on him twice. Giants, Jets, Colts, Broncos all passed on Josh Allen. Play the game one day. How would those franchises look right now if they had taken Josh Allen before Brandon Beane did at 7? The next year he goes to get Stephon Diggs. That worked until it didn't work. They've spent money on defense this last year. A lot of draft picks on defense. A lot of those draft picks are hurt, whether it's on the D-line or Max Harrison on the back end. And it simply was not their best nor their healthiest team. I also have to ask, does this team play tight in the postseason? Did Josh Allen play tight at the end of the second quarter or early in the third quarter? Is that where those turnovers come from? The player has the responsibility. Okay.
I think
does it come from top down? And
I think
was this team as tightly wound as its coach? And did that show up in January every year?
that play at the end of the second quarter was telling to me, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that was Josh Allen being constantly in hero mode because he's got to do it all, saying, I just got to run with this and see what I could do. And even though it made no sense for them to even be running a play right there, him running with the ball with 10 seconds left or whatever, it is minus 40. Like, it made no sense, but that's got to be his mindset of, I have to do everything for this team. I have to literally put the franchise on my back every single play. And that just seeps into making bad decisions like that. So when you ask if they play tight, I'll say this. In the locker room afterwards, I've never seen a locker room quite like that. Multiple guys just crying. And everybody to a man saying, we put too much pressure on Josh. This isn't on Josh. And Josh Allen was crying when he got to the podium. Like, I was like, has he been crying? And I was like, oh no, he's crying right now. And then he started talking.
He's crying on the podium.
Tell. Because the
Deion
pressure
Dawkins
on him
crying on the podium.
Yes, Deion Dawkins, I was right there for that. The pressure on him, Brandon Cooks too, the pressure on him is so immense. He feels that. Everybody else feels that. And I do think that causes them to play a different way. They're not playing loose and easy. They're playing like, oh my God, we got to get this done. I don't know if a new coach can fix that, but I think they had to try.
Let me ask you this, because Charles, you pointed out that you thought when McDermott was on the podium and fighting as hard as he fought, and for the record, if I'm a Bills fan, I will be upset for the remainder of my life about that call, because I'm only going to see it through the lens of we got the short end of the stick. Same goes for the two DPIs as well. I think the Trey White one was clearly DPI, clearly, and I think you felt the pressure when he got the personal foul or the, mouthing off to the official penalty. I think you saw the weight of a guy who was given a second shot, coming back from 2 injuries in 2 years in the desert, back to Buffalo, and he too realizing it's over. But C-Rob, when you say you think McDermott on the podium knew, in retrospect, I think the players knew. Don't you, Frank? The finality of losing in the playoffs is unlike anything anywhere. Like, it is over, and it is so bleeping hard to get back here. But whether it's Josh Allen or Dawkins or other players as well, in retrospect, I think they knew as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they feared it. Let's put it that way, because they're just. Yeah. I've never. It was as emotional of a locker room as I've been in Super Bowl losing locker rooms before, and it's not been that emotional. Like, it is. It was a little jarring how emotional those guys were, because I think they all felt that pressure of, we got to get here, we got to get the Super Bowl, we got to save Sean's job. Whatever it was, you could tell it was different than anything I've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills. That's the thing. Look, players know. It's not just Sean that goes out the door, right? I mean, it's a multitude of coaches, systems change, player fits change. You're looking around a locker room and you're going, yeah, Josh is going to be here. James Cook's going to be here. Whole lot of guys aren't going to be here, because all of a sudden over the next couple of years, you're going to have to reshape really everything that is that roster. So, it's obviously a remarkable amount of pressure. And that's why I'll never forget, after the 13 seconds game happened, I think I remember saying to our NFL editor, Al Toby, I was like, you just never, I know everyone thinks, oh, this is just, the first step in the big grand picture. I'm like, man, you get this close. You never know if you're ever going to get that close ever again. And it feels like they've just backslid down the mountain as it's gone.
It's getting further and further.
Is
yep.
So difficult to get there. And for a franchise, for a fan base that has come so close so many times, not only with the 4 Super Bowl trips with the Kelly era, in that era with Marv Levy, but this era here with Josh Allen never having even advanced to the Super Bowl, to say at least we got here. You never know. And one quick final note here, as we wrap up the Sean McDermott part of this conversation here. So 10 openings, obviously 2 have been filled, the Giants and the Falcons. But of those 10, 8 of those 10 had the coach leaving and the GM staying. The only 2 in which ownership also wiped out the GM along with the head coach, Atlanta and Miami. So the other 8, hey, coach, you're gone, GM, you get to stay for whatever that is worth. Also, a final note, if you go back to the 2023 playoffs, so 24 months ago, there were 7 teams obviously in the AFC. 5 of those 7 coaches are now gone in 24 months. Harbaugh, Tomlin, McDaniel, McDermott, Stefanski. 5. You're throwing Mike McCarthy, who left a year ago after making the playoffs. That would be 6. He's the only one for the NFC that still isn't or is gone after 2 years. So 6 of the 14 in 24 months.
Sean McVay, not 40 yet. Second longest tenured coach in the NFL. Correct. He's not even 40.
He's a man. He's not 40. Correct. Coming up next, is C.J. Stroud the Texans quarterback of the future? Oh, yeah, and the would-be MVP in the AFC, Drake May, is moving on to an AFC championship game. What we learned from that game in Foxborough, and Sean McVay saying it's cold as bleep in Chicago. Don't go anywhere. Inside coverage on Yahoo. Yes, I promise there was more to the weekend than just Josh Allen and Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham in Denver. Let's run through the rest of the games. Andrew Siciliano, Charles Robinson, and Frank Schwab. And let's begin, guys, with the early Sunday game. The Patriots beat the Texans 28-16. It was not the most beautiful of games. It was, of all the games that was played this weekend, it was certainly one of them. Kayshon Boutte, beautiful one-handed catch, kind of put the game away in a turnover-filled, snowy, beautiful if you're a Patriots fan, ugly if you're a Texans fan kind of afternoon. Mike Vrabel in his first season back there, and with Drake May in his second full season, are moving on to the AFC Championship game, and everything feels right in Foxborough again. We have all week to focus on them. I want to hit the Texan side of it here if we can, because along with D'Amico Ryans and Matt Burke and Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter and that great secondary and Azeez Al-Shire, they had what they thought was the best defense in football and what some outside pundits thought could be one of the best defenses we have seen in recent years, maybe the last decade, maybe the last 20 years. I thought the last 20 years was a bit extreme because they hadn't won anything. They had a nice winning streak at the end of the season, but prove it to me come January. They did Monday night in Pittsburgh, and I thought they did enough to win the game Sunday in Foxborough, but they did give up 3 long scoring drives. None of their takeaways from Drake May resulted in points for the offense. Rather, let me say it the other way around. I apologize. None of the Patriots' takeaways from C.J. Stroud resulted in points for the Patriots' offense. But C.J. played a bad game. He was a turnover machine for the second time in a week. And the Texans head into the offseason now with a legitimate quarterback question. Both head coach D'Amico Ryans and the guy taken right after him in the draft 2 years ago, Will Anderson, and the rest of that locker room are supporting their quarterback. Here's Will Anderson.
Man. And I'm going to be 100% honest. It's so much bigger than football. It's so much bigger than what everybody has to say, especially for CJ. When he's good on his faith, he knows what he's done before. He knows who he is, and he's God, man. So God handles it behind him. He's going to be good. We're walking behind him. And I told him, man, I still think you're the best quarterback in this league. Hands down, nobody better than you. And we're behind him. We're rallying behind him, man. And like I said, obviously we didn't have the outcome that we wanted, but that's what we have offseason for, to get better and grow.
All right, so now, C-Rob, start with you. It's we're heading into the third offseason here, so he's got 3 years under his belt by the CBA. This is the offseason in which the Texans can offer him the big money extension and lock in their franchise guy. After the third year, they did Herbert, they did Burrow, you do Kyler Murray. This is when you do your quarterback. Do the Texans give C.J. Stroud the long-term deal after the guy you saw this year?
No. Not just this year, last year. He's been chasing, that rookie season now for a couple of years and not been the same player. And, I think it's fair to say the roster obviously has had a lot of deterioration since 2023. When you go back and you look at that 2023 team, had Tank Dell on it, who was a guy who was almost uncoverable at times, who was one of C.J. Stroud's favorite players. The talent level on the offensive line was completely different. I mean, Laramie Tunsil was anchoring that line. He was still protected. I think it was interesting, though, when you look at that you look at that 2023 season, he did have a blip. And obviously I live here in Houston, and I remember it. They played the Jets late in that season. It was like a December game. Horrible game. And they threw mixed coverages at him. They got him. I mean, he was pressured, had to move around. He got hit. And it was like, wow, he looks terrible when he's seeing a lot of these different mixed defensive looks and he's facing pressure. He just had, when, at the time you're like, it's just an off game. It's just how it is. He's a rookie season, stellar year, off game. And then 2024, when the offensive line completely fell apart, the offensive creativity struggled. He looked a lot like that player at times who suffered that ugly Jets loss his rookie season. And now I think you've now got back-to-back years of data where if you throw different looks at CJ Stroud, you make him move and he gets hit and he's uncomfortable, he is not the accurate passer he is if he has an ability to plant his feet in the pocket and play exclusively protected from protection. And now you're the Texans. There's no way you can do an extension after that third year. You have to pick up his, I personally think, this is my opinion, I think you have to pick up that fifth year option, which is going to be costly, but you take him through the next 2 years, because the last thing you can afford is to make the Tua mistake. You can't go, well, what other options do we have? Or in my mind, let's say he plays well in 2026. I don't think you extend him, because that was the mistake Miami made. Tua had one good year and they said, okay, this is the guy, that's the guy, and we have no other options here. So let's go ahead and do this deal and we'll ride, into the horizon with this guy. I think CJ Stroud has showed you enough to be alarmed with the last 2 seasons to take it through the next 2 seasons before you determine whether he's worth that extension.
I just don't know what to make of this situation, because CJ Stroud was so good as a rookie, like unbelievably good. I remember that Jets game too, but you kind of just, like you said, said, okay, he had a bad game against a Robert Saleh defense. Like, that's going to happen sometimes. And he just has not recaptured that at all. And I just think that what NFL teams do is they just pay their quarterbacks and hope, because you don't got enough time to really see it through to the next quarterback, right? So I view this as the exact same situation, a similar situation to what the Jaguars were in with Trevor Lawrence, where we hadn't seen it from Trevor Lawrence, but the Jaguars were like, we got to extend him. What were we going to do? Let Trevor Lawrence go? Like, we got to extend him and hope that it was the infrastructure around him and not getting him enough coaching and all this stuff. And to the Jaguars' credit, Trevor Lawrence kind of came alive in the second half of this year. And maybe they did make the right decision, but I get what you're saying, Charles. I do. Where, I mean, it's,
you're saying you'd extend him? You would extend him?
I'm saying they will. I don't know. I think they will. I don't know what I would do. I really don't. I think they will, because that's what NFL teams do. Teams that are in the middle of the road at quarterback just pay the guy and hope. Because again, I think what are you going to do?
I really do think they have to wait. I think they have to do the 5th year option, which is going to be $26 million,
you might wait a year,
roughly.
But I think eventually he's going to get it.
You pick up the 5th year option,
$50 million year.
But then you're right, because the Dolphins waited. And like, I'll go back a couple of years ago when we're all rolling into the combine on a Monday morning in Indianapolis a few years ago, when Kyler Murray had just wrapped up his 3rd season. And his agent, Eric Burkhardt, hit send on a ransom note on Twitter. We demand our extension now, or else. We're like, all right, pump your brakes. Like, pump your brakes. There's no need, no need to rush. I think there's no need to rush here. There is zero need to rush. Nothing says you have to do it after year 3. We've seen teams and players wait for the extension. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, for example, the wide receiver position. They waited for their extension. There's no reason for CJ Stroud. You cannot wait, because you're watching that game. And I remember talking to CJ. We talked to him before the opener back in September or in late August. And, there was part of me, and I talked about it with Madison, our producer, after the interview, that was like, wow, I wish this was a 45-minute off-season, like, sit-down where we could have taken a deeper dive, because you could see that the criticism from his sophomore season and his own self-doubt, because he wanted to play better, was eating at him, and that he had a lot to prove this year. And it was going to be an uphill battle early on. Joe Mixon was injured. Nick Caley was the new OC. And, it's not just what Bobby Slowick was doing. It's not the Shanahan system. It was more the McDaniels system, which, by the way, might, connect the dots as to the game plan yesterday for the Patriots. They had institutional knowledge of what Nick Caley was trying to do. That's where he cut his teeth. But that CJ felt the burden of this season on him. And I think the second half of the year, the offensive line was healthy. They were running the ball effectively with Woody Marks. The rookie wide receivers had come on a little bit, and CJ is playing confidently. And you're like, all right, there it is. But then it fell off the cliff. And it fell off the cliff so badly, Troy Aikman had to say something at the end of the game, and as soon as he started kind of going there, I raised my hand, and I was like, yep, okay, here it is. I'm waiting for him to say it, because it's the only lens through which I was watching that game yesterday, C-Rob. It's, oh boy, this is going to be a bad offseason in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult conversation to have, and you're going to have to. I don't know how you don't look at the offense and try to figure out how to once again retool it. The backfield needs more work. I mean, look, Woody Marks is, he's fine. They need more in the backfield. The offensive line still needs work. Nico Collins goes down, and Dalton Schultz is that's your go-to guy. I realize there's been investment. There's been investment. I think looking back on it, had you kept Stephon Diggs, he would have been a piece that was useful this year. I didn't know Stephon Diggs was going to have the kind of season he was going to have in New England. And I don't think that the Houston Texans really thought he still had this left in him either. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a difficult offseason because you're going to have the quarterback contract hanging over your head. And Andrew, you put words to it. He's a good kid. He cares. He cares about football. And I think it bothers him when he feels like he lets down not only his teammates, but also DeMeco Ryans. I think it really bothers him that he's not been able to capture a level of consistency here. And I'll say this, it's not over, right? It's not over for the kid. Like they can go back to the drawing table. He could be fine next year, right? I just think it's holding off you can't have an agent come in and say, okay, let's talk about $50 to $60 million a year in extension. I mean, and I think Cal McNair loves him. I think Cal McNair absolutely loves him. And Frank, if they do the deal, it's because it's Cal McNair sitting there going, I want to do the deal with the kid. I believe in the kid. I want to do the deal. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out around him. I think that would be ownership driven. I just don't think I keep thinking about the Tua deal, and I'm like, you can't strap yourself to this, because if it's the wrong decision, it's absolutely going to cripple you as a franchise. Just wait a year, and if it costs more, fine. It'll cost more.
Yeah, I can see that. And I should have clarified that I don't think it's going to happen this offseason, but I do think at the end of the day, at some point, we're going to be sitting here on Inside Coverage talking about C.J. Stroud's 5-year, $260 million contract. Like, it's going to happen eventually, unless it just completely falls apart next year, which I doubt. He'll probably just be the same quarterback he's been the last 2 years, and then they're kind of stuck. And what's going to make the offseason even longer is that Houston team is going to turn on that AFC Championship game on Sunday and say, all we had to do was beat Jarrett Stidham to go to a Super Bowl.
Points.
If we would have got decent quarterback play in the playoffs, we'd be playing Jarrett Stidham with the best defense in football, maybe the best defense since like the 2015 Broncos, with a Super Bowl trip on the line. And we could have won the Super Bowl too. Like, that's what's going to make it tough. When they have that realization that the Super Bowl is right there for them. And yes, the quarterback let them down. Like that did happen.
As a Browns fan as well, watching the Texans, it's uncomfortable because it's the same defense. Schwartz, Matt Burke, obviously. A lot of similar pieces here. 2 years ago when the Browns did get in, they went down to Houston, ran into the buzzsaw. They never thought they were going to lose that game, and they did, and they lost badly. They lost by 31 points when all was said and done, and CJ was a rookie. He played amazingly well. Obviously, there's the Deshaun trade and everything the Texans have done with it, but just on paper, the Browns thought, they did. They have a top 5 defense. Just score 18 points a game. Just get 19. Just be able to get in the end zone a couple of times. This is an awful division. You can win. Much different here. The Texans made the playoffs. They're a better team. They're a better defense. But there are threads here. Like, just score a couple of points. We're okay. Don't turn the ball over. Play clean, sound, fundamental football. Give it back to us. We'll do the rest. We'll be okay. It didn't happen. DeMeco Ryans is there for the future. They have a quarterback decision to make now with C.J. Stroud. The Bears do not have a quarterback decision to make. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson this year is a beautiful marriage. It got there eventually. They've renewed their vows, and everyone is happy in Chicago that they have the foundation for the future. Caleb Williams also made one of those plays yesterday where you jump out of your seat and you jump up and down to the couch and you wake up the neighbors and you scream, "Oh my God, did you just see that?" Alas, in the end, the other quarterback is the MVP, and that 37-year-old still has some old tricks, like hitting Devontae Adams and throwing the ball in like a plastic cup from the far hash onto the sideline in overtime to help win that game. And the Rams, who were my preseason pick to represent the NFC, are still rolling. They survive the cold in Chicago, and they move on to Seattle. Frank, we'll start with you, sir, on this one. Your takeaways from the thriller Sunday night.
Yeah, and it's of all the divisional round losers, the Bears are the one team that's like, you know what? Yeah, we lost. That's disappointing. But, man, we can't wait for next season because everything's on an upward trajectory there. And, look, Caleb Williams, those highlights are going to be replayed a million times in the offseason, and I get it. They're unbelievable plays. That touchdown pass that Komet, I was screaming in my living room, too. We got to remember, Caleb still has a ways to go. We can't forget that he did have some accuracy issues. He did have some consistency issues. The reason they were behind in a lot of games was the first. But you look at those plays that who can make those plays? Josh Allen, maybe Patrick Mahomes when he's healthy. That's about it.
That's it.
And then you say the sky is the limit for this kid, and Chicago should be very, very excited about where they're going. I thought they were a year ahead of time on this, but they should feel great. They should feel absolutely, positively wonderful about the Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams combination going forward. It's all optimism for Chicago, even in what should be a horrible overtime loss at home. No, not this time. You're like, yeah, that sucked, but we're going to be back. Don't worry.
I just enjoyed Sean McVay's face when Caleb hit that touchdown pass to Komet. Just the look on his face, like, I'm going to see this for the rest of my life in my nightmares. I'm going to live this guy running backwards to the 40. And I'm watching. I'm like, this is nuts. Like, what is he doing? Like, he's like, what are you doing?
Like a
what are you
rookie
doing?
quarterback in a preseason game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kobe Durant did not believe he could get the ball there, right? Like, no. Kobe Durant.
No, Kobe had 2 picks in the game.
There wasn't really that much of a push-off. I just think Durant just didn't think the ball was going to get there.
He just misplayed it. That was it. He
misplayed it.
He's literally, Caleb Williams is backpedaling at the 40 and somehow gets it to Cole Kmet. What?
Yeah, he misplayed it. It was just funny because the Bears, I'm telling you, it's like Rome Odunze, I said it, Rome Odunze drops catches that are catchable, and then he catches balls that are not catchable. I'm like, what?
You're right.
So if we could just flip that with him, and then Caleb, stop sailing the easy ones, right? If you can just stop sailing the easy ones, because we know when it comes to the hard ones, you're Da Vinci, okay? Like, that's what you are at this point. Like, it's ridiculous what he can do when the difficulty is turned up to a 10. But I believe in Ben Johnson. I believe in that roster. There's a ton of talent. I mean, Colston Loveland, I've talked about him multiple times, and Luther Burden. I mean, they're loaded. They are absolutely loaded offense. I think that, they're exactly what Frank said. It's hard. It hurts, but they're also sitting there going, we know what we've got here, and we've got something, and it's real, and we're going to carry that into next season. When I look at the Rams, I think it's a positive that the defense kept bailing out. I mean, Sean McVay had some terrible play calls. He really did. And if you look at the fourth, he admitted it. He admitted it, especially the pitch. The pitch to Blake Corum in overtime was just that lost 2 yards. I mean, it was just a devastating bad call. But also, I'm sitting there and I'm watching the fourth quarter, and they've got the ball, and it's, nearing 2 minutes, and he just keeps running it. And I'm like, are you going to try to put the ball in Matt Stafford or Puka Nakua's hands on this drive? Or are you really going to give the ball back to the Bears at this point, knowing what Caleb Williams does in these situations? And what did he do? He ran it into the teeth as well. Yeah. I mean, he punted it. I mean,
at 207 in regulation. I didn't get that.
Yeah, it was stopping anyway. I mean, what are you going to do? It's stopping at 2 minutes. At least give Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua an opportunity in that moment. And I thought it was the kind of game where McVay walked out going, okay, I got away with one here. Like, I was not on top of it. My defense bailed me out. Kobe Durant, even though he misplayed the Komet ball, he had a couple of picks. I mean, the Cam Curl interception was insane. In that cold weather, you lay out like that and you pull in that interception, I mean, is everything that they thought he could be in those moments. They got away with one. But I'll ask you guys this. I think the cold weather definitely affected him. Matt Stafford, I think it was the only game of the season where he was below 50% in the completion percentage. How much better is it really going to get in now? You got to go in January and play up in Seattle, where it's not going to be like it was in Chicago, obviously, But that stadium is also just different. As good as Soldier Field was, it's just different in Seattle, in this environment, in this kind of cold weather, at this stage with what's on the line there. I'm very curious to see, how the Rams offense, if it can pull itself together for that.
I'm looking up the forecast here for Sunday in Seattle. It's a high of 45, a low of 37. Clear skies, cloudy at least. Cloudy, no precipitation for now. No, for now, it's a 3:30 local kick. Remember, the Seahawks are going to be without Zach Charbonnet, we find out today. And Mike McDonald, as we record this, is at this moment at the podium. Zach Charbonnet, ACL, he's out. Kenneth Walker had a great game. Obviously, the Seahawks just blew through the 49ers on the ground of that game after the opening kickoff was over. I was speaking to somebody before the Rams took off for Chicago last week, and this is tangential. This is not a member of the front office. This is someone associated with the organization, but in no way a decision maker or a locker room motivator. Let me just put it that way. Who said, part of me wants to go to Seattle again. Like, we thought we were the better team. Let's go up there and take it, as opposed to, being at home would be great. You're going to have a lot of 49er fans there. And people say, well, the Rams have no fans. That's why the 49ers take it over. No, there are a lot of people that have decided they like living in Southern California better than they do living in the mess of the Bay Area. So they have moved down here. There are a lot of Niner fans here. So this person said, you know what, let's go up there and take it in Seattle. That said, it's the most difficult outdoor venue in America. Any sport. It is that loud. Like the Beastquake, I don't need a seismograph. I've been there. It is that loud. And it's going to be cold, and that team is damn good. So, this game's fun. Sign me up. I'm thinking of going. I'm looking at how I could, redo my flights to get from Seattle to Mobile on Monday morning for the Senior Bowl. And if that happens, maybe yours truly will be there to watch it. But back to that quarterback comment you made. Sam Darnold is starting for 2 13-win teams in back-to-back years in the postseason, C-Rob. Like, let's give this guy some respect. So what, he only needed to throw like 15 passes Saturday night, but who cares? Collectively, that team is dominant.
Yeah, what worries me is you can't live like that forever. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Seattle's defense is just it. It's that crew, and it's going to be the type that can carry them through to a Super Bowl. But at some point, Sam Darnold's going to have to pick you up and carry you. There are going to be some mistakes. You can't. I don't think. Look, the Charbonnet loss is massive. That's just the depth they had there. The change, the sort of change of pace between those two. Plus, they're both really physical running backs. It was a lot of fun to watch them operate. Now you got to put the whole load on Kenneth Walker, and look, Michigan State guy, hey, congratulations, awesome. It's great to see him grind it out. But again, we're going to have to see Sam Darnold pick it up and put it on his shoulders at some stage. And that's what the Rams feel like they're going to get into in this game. I think they look at that overtime game and they say, look, we feel like we can score on this defense. We can do that again and push them into a situation where Sam Darnold's going to have to be, far better than above average. And I just question whether or not he can continue to surface in those moments. The Thursday night game, look, you go back to it, they win that game in overtime. He picked it up when he had to. He made everybody wrong when we were all certain, nope, this shows what Sam Darnold is. He looked horrible, early in that game, and we wrote him off, and then he completely flipped the script. I'm happy. Look, I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I really am. Like, it's a fairy tale story that, to go to Minnesota, have the success you had, and then have them make another decision and send you packing, and then to go to Seattle and show, actually, I am that guy. You shouldn't have let me out the door, and now I'm the one in the NFC title game. I think this is a big moment for him, but until I see him do it on this stage, in this kind of environment where every mistake is just so much pressure on you, I'm going to wait and see before I buy into it.
And I think we have to note, too, that just because they won, we completely forgot that Sam Darnold's dealing with an oblique injury. When Kyle Van Noy was on with us last week, he said, yeah, I've had an oblique. It took me 6 weeks to get over it. And last week, look, Sam looked fine. A very, very nice touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba. But he had to throw 17 times. We didn't really, I don't think anyway, got a full picture of whether Sam Darnold's healthy. He's going to have to throw 30, 35, 40 times in this game, probably, maybe, because, the Rams, going back to that Week 16 game and feeling like, hey, let's go take what's ours, because that Week 16 game, Matthew Stafford threw for 457 yards in that game. He was awesome. Correct. Their offense was awesome in that game.
600 yards of offense, basically.
Yeah, I think a Rams should go in there feeling pretty good. And to your point, Charles, I absolutely agree that this is going to be a game. Sam Darnold ain't throwing 17 times in this game. That just is not on the table for them. This is going to be one of those games where he has to make plays and he can't make mistakes. Again, for 7.5 quarters against the Rams, and even going back to the playoffs last year, so make it 11.5 quarters, Sam Darnold was terrible against the Rams. Chris Shula really had his number. Now, Sam got hot, and he came up with the plays he had to. Good for him. Awesome. Great story. Big win. But the fact is, the Rams have had his number for most of the time they've played him with Chris Shula as their defensive coordinator.
I'll leave you with this before we move on to our final block, and let's check our boxes here on the two teams that hired head coaches over the weekend. I'll leave you with this. There is a world, because you mentioned the oblique injury, and Darnold said after the game Saturday that this is something that is going to linger here. It's not as if he's going to magically wake up Monday morning and no longer be on the injury report with a left oblique strain. There is a world in which the Seahawks win and Darnold aggravates this injury, where we have a Drew Lock, Jarrett Stidham Super Bowl.
Stop.
There is a world.
What are you doing, man? What are you doing?
There is a world.
Andrew.
In a world.
What are you doing, Andrew?
Come on now.
The battle of the former Bronco backups.
Broncos quarterbacks.
Drew Lock, second-round pick of the Broncos out of Missouri, part of the Russell Wilson deal, to Seattle. Jarrett Stidham, after Nathaniel Hackett fired, he comes in with Sean Payton. Just saying.
Frank, you'd be by yourself at the Super Bowl if that happened.
All right. Yeah. Cancel all plans.
Drew Lock. There's the cutaway from the Bad Bunny cutaway from the Bad Bunny halftime show is just Frank in the stands doing
hanging out.
Oh,
finger dance. Okay. Coming up next, the Falcons and the Giants both have their head coaches. Do you think either of them said, hey, can I change my mind and go to Buffalo? That's next on Inside Coverage. So, on Inside Coverage, there were 10 vacancies in all. 3 of those vacancies are either officially filled or well down the road to being filled. They finally, after a stare down, I think it's fair to say, over the weekend, got the deal done in New York. John Harbaugh did not want to answer to Joe Schoen. He wanted to answer to ownership. That deal is official. No word at a news conference yet, however. So the Giants' job goes to John Harbaugh. The Falcons' job goes to Kevin Stefanski. It was easy to connect those dots the day Kevin left 2 Mondays ago from Cleveland. Matt Ryan, Philadelphia ties. It just made too much sense there. He is the new man in charge in Atlanta. And then as we were coming on the air Monday, connecting dots here again, it made a lot of sense. Hi, I'm Andrew. C-Rob and Frank are here as well. C-Rob, that Jeff Hafley is going to follow John Michael Sullivan, or John Eric Sullivan, I beg your pardon, to Miami. He's the new GM there, former Packer assistant GM. You bring with him the former Packer DC. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a great defensive hire for them. There's no question. I mean, one of the, I think, elite play callers from the defensive side. And when he had Micah Parsons in his full complement in Green Bay, I mean, I think that was a championship level defense, particularly when they reached their peak before Parsons suffered the knee injury. The way I viewed this, though, and kind of when we did the coaching roundtable, I felt like we were going to see better jobs come off off the table, and ultimately Hafley was going to end up in Miami, because I I'll just be straight up with you. I don't know that a lot of candidates really viewed Miami as being an elite level job. I think they had questions about what do you got to do with Tua? You walk in, you're automatically under the burden of this decision that's got to be made. And even if Tua, you bite the bullet and move Tua off the roster, what are you doing at the quarterback spot? It's just a massive rebuild, and the cap hit that would come with moving Tua, the potential danger of keeping Tua an extra year just to see what you've got, the injury potential that could happen with Tua in 2026. There were a lot of red flags, I think, when it ultimately came to this job. And personally, I think that if Ross had his druthers, I truly believe Stephen Ross, the owner, would have ended up with John Harbaugh as his head coach. But I think Harbaugh looked at that scenario and thought, I'm walking into a mess there. I don't want to spend the next 3 years just cleaning up the mess before I feel like we can actually compete as a football team. So having the synergy between John Eric Sullivan and a head coach that he knows, and a structure that will make sense because it's two individuals that trust each other from being in a previous stop with the Packers. The hire makes sense to me, but if it had gone beyond Hafley, I would have been really interested in seeing the candidate they landed.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good hire for the synergy. I like that term from you, Charles, and also because I think this is a bad job football wise, really bad job. They're in for a rebuild. It's not going to be pretty there for a couple of years. You get to live in Miami, like that's cool, but the job itself, there's a long way to go. So to land Hafley, I thought was pretty good. And then on the other two, like the home run hires, like the Giants are finally off the Ben McAdoo, Joe Judge merry-go-round. They get a dude in there, A+ for the Giants to land Harbaugh. I thought he was the guy, obviously, in this cycle, unless you count Tomlin. And I thought it was a really, really good hire in Atlanta, too. Good job. And then Stefanski, I thought I gave that an A. I like both of those hires. And I think the Dolphins did as well as they could have landing Hafley.
The Stefanski thing makes sense, and you give him weapons, and I think this offense is going to get firing again. He's got no line. He's got Bijan Robinson. He's got Drake London. Maybe he's got Kyle Pitts. Word on the street is he's bringing back Bill Callahan as his offensive line coach. Bill was obviously there with Brian Callahan there in Tennessee. His son, Bill, left last year when Brian took that job. The Browns let him out of the contract. The year before, he got rid of AVP, Alex Van Pelt, and then you bring in Ken Dorsey, and the whole thing with Deshaun last year kind of went sideways. And since 2023, the Browns offense has not been able to do really anything. I think it will next year, and I guarantee you 5-6 weeks into the season when Bijan Robinson's already nearing 1,000 yards of total offense, we're going to go, wait a minute. Oh, wow. Look, Stefanski, Bill Callahan, it's working again. It will work. They have defensive pieces there. I think the Falcons are right in the thick of things in the NFC South. They have a very winnable division, but they got to find out their quarterback. And they got to figure it out. Is there a world in which after you get rid of Kirk Cousins right before the new league year that you somehow can circle back with him and make something work? He and Kevin obviously have that history. They had worked together for many years in Minneapolis, and they have a friendship there as well, not just a working relationship. Is it Michael Penix? Matt Ryan last week when he was on the podium said Penix, he believes in him. And Penix is heading into year number 3. He's oft injured. At times, he looks like the guy. At times, he does not. But they got to figure out the quarterback there. I think you have a lukewarm fan base and a great building and an owner that might be impatient but is willing to spend money. We'll see how it works. I think it is a good job. I think, however, as I look at the clock here, gentlemen, that both of those coaches, if they're being totally honest, and I don't know, might have looked at Buffalo this morning and went, oh, geez, I mean, see, if I could have had Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee maybe John Harbaugh wouldn't have, but I even questioned if John Harbaugh might have thought, okay, you know what?
I don't think.
Let me walk.
I think Kevin likes
go in there and and let's be honest. The one thing about the Buffalo job for any candidate, it's not. You do have Josh Allen, that's great, but it's not perfect. There's still a lot of work to do there, and you have to count on Brandon Beane to be able to do that work. Right? He's got elevated. It was pretty clear. Even if it's just the facade, you're getting a message already from ownership. So from a roster standpoint, I don't know. I mean, Buffalo might be a little heavier lift than we think. And as much as I love Josh Allen to death, I do, but it's not like Josh Allen was like the crux of the problem there. There were a lot of other problems around him that have to be resolved.
Right, and 95% of NFL head coaching openings, you're allowed some patience. You know what the bar is for the Buffalo Bills coach in year one? If you don't make the Super Bowl, it's disappointment.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Because Sean McDermott made the playoffs 7 straight years, didn't get to a Super Bowl. He got fired. You're not going to get a year or two to be like, oh, yeah, implement your schemes, and then we'll be fine by 2028. Like, nah, you better make a Super Bowl this year. All of Buffalo's going to be upset at you.
Atlanta and New York, the Falcons and the Giants, they would be quite happy next year if they just got in the playoffs. Now, they would love to do more, don't get me wrong, but hey, postseason football, yeah, that would be good. All right, time for one more thing before we go. Oh, forgot, we got the music.
Oh, yeah, the music.
The house band. The house band was fired up.
The house band. He called it the house band. I love it.
It is a house band. I'm over here playing the bass. What do you got?
My one more thing is just the Eric Bieniemy return in Kansas City at the offensive coordinator spot, and just watching, listening to Chiefs fans go back and forth in consternation about Eric Bieniemy and, why can't Andy Reid go out and do something different, try something new? Why is he leaning into familiarity? Look, I think to me, the reality with Bieniemy is, if you're Andy Reid, you're saying, look, I'm calling the plays anyway, right? And yes, this guy's been out of our organization for a number of years, but when he was in our organization, everybody knew this, he coached players hard. And I think there was a mentality there that he brought to the table that, frankly, over a long enough timeline, it wears thin. I also think it's good that he's been through other organizations. He got away from the Chiefs. He spent a year with the Washington Commanders, spent some time with UCLA. I think it was good for him to be inside the Chicago Bears and kind of see how Ben Johnson did it, maybe tuck away some of those plays from the playbook. I would definitely try to bring the playbook with me from the Chicago experience. I would love the Bieniemy reunion just because I think it's good for the Chiefs to have someone who comes back in and pushes those players. Doesn't have to be a tactician, just gets in there and tries to give them a little bit more of an edge, because I do feel like that's something that got lost over time.
I agree. And caught wind this morning from around the league that Eric Bieniemy might be trying to put some pieces together on that staff. I was like, oh boy, is it really going to happen? It's really going to happen. Eric Bieniemy is back. Matt Nagy's contract is up, and whether he lands in Tennessee or elsewhere, Eric Bieniemy is sliding into his office, used to be his office, his once and future office in Kansas City. What do you got, Frank?
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of credit to the Seattle Seahawks front office, John Schneider there, and also give a little bit more criticism to Brandon Beane, because that's been a theme today. Back at the trading deadline, Brandon Beane was chiding the reporters who were criticizing him for not making a move at the trade deadline, saying, oh, this isn't fantasy football. The Seattle Seahawks would have made a deal that absolutely turned around their season. They went and got Rashid Shaheed, 4th and 5th round picks, which was not a heavy price to pay for a team that had Super Bowl dreams. Shaheed has made the 2 biggest plays of the Seattle season, arguably. The punt return against the Rams completely turned that game around and led to a historic comeback. And then the divisional round game against the 49ers was practically done 13 seconds into it because Shaheed returned the opening kickoff there. And you kind of knew, okay, this is the Seahawks day. Shaheed's a big-time playmaker, has not been a big part of their offense, but has made some huge plays. And that's the kind of thing that takes a team from being a Super Bowl contender, maybe to being a Super Bowl champion. So credit to Seattle Seahawks for being aggressive, making what I thought was the smartest move at the trade deadline. It's paying off with Rashid Shaheed making plays for them.
Yeah, John Schneider has made a lot of pretty savvy moves to rebuild this thing and do so on the fly. My one more thing is a tip of the cap to one of my favorite humans, one of my favorite former coworkers, and just a good friend. And that is NFL Network reporter and Hall of Famer, University of Oklahoma basketball legend, Stacey Dales, who was in the corner at Soldier Field yesterday and had the viral video of all viral videos. It, at last check, had like 5 million views. Dales had the angle of the Caleb Williams ridiculous 4th down heave to Cole Kmet. I mean, look at this. And not only did she get the angle, I'm looking down to see how many views it has now. She got the celebration, the baseball bat celebration. And I texted Dales earlier today. I got to find how many views it has. Stick with me, guys. I texted Dales earlier this afternoon. It has 5 million views, and said, if you don't sell that to Apple for them to put it in the next iPhone commercial.
Oh, that'd be dope.
Like the new camera. It's got to be up there. It's got to be up there. It's like, sell it to Apple, get yourself a nice check, and retire. Please, Stacey Dales. I know you love your job. You're great at your job, but you have to somehow cash in, because that's there's never been a greater sideline video.
And now that she captured the stadium actually kind of getting quiet when he let go of that ball.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, because the stadium, you hear the collective, like everybody just holds their breath, like what's happening? And then a total explosion when he catches it. It was awesome.
Yeah. And that's her video. That's her property. That's on her phone, her personal phone. It's now been played quite literally all over the world. And it's going to keep being played all over the world. It's not an NFL Films. You saw the NFL Films guy right there. Cole Kmet went straight to Stacey Dales for the celebration. Wouldn't have gone straight to me. I'm short. She's not. She's like 6'3". She's basketball legend Stacey Dales. She's WNBA All-Star Stacey Dales. She's former WNBA GM Stacey Dales. And she got the celebration. All right, we're going to celebrate because it was a great weekend. For C-Rob and for Frank, I'm Andrew Siciliano. We're going to be back on Tuesday for another big show. Maybe another coach will be fired. I highly doubt that, but maybe others will be hired.
God.
And no, I don't want that to happen. We'll also have a college football national championship game to look back on as well. For the other two off camera now, shaking their head at me, my name is Andrew Siciliano. So long.